Hi everyone, I'm Becca. So if you found yourself here, then you probably want to learn a little bit more about hem facings. So that's what I'm going to chat to you about today. So I've got some examples to show you, and then we've got some videos step by step on how you would draft your own. And if you'd prefer to see step-by-step pictures, then you can have a look at the blog post, which is linked below, and that will show you step by step the same things that we're going to talk to you about in the video as well. So what is a hem facing? Well, a hem facing is a separate pattern piece that you use to sew your hem with. So you might be used to a traditional hem, a turn and fold hem, where you'd fold the fabric. If you're using a woven fabric, you'd maybe fold it up twice before you then sew the hem, and that's basically like as an extension of the whole body or whatever it is you're sewing. So there's no extra piece there. But if you're using a hem facing, then it's a separate piece that you sew on the bottom, gets stitched on, then it gets folded to the inside and then stitched down to create a beautiful hem facing. So it gives a really clean finish. You can use it to add extra detail. So I'll show you some little examples. So in the tutorial, I'm going to be using the strata top from Sew Liberated as my example. So this is a strata here. So you can use it if you've got like quite a big curved hem. Then you might have found when you're trying to hem those kind of garments that it's quite difficult to fold up a deep turn. You're having to like ease the fabric back in because you're going from a big circle to a smaller circle. So a hem facing can be a nice option there, say on a circle skirt or something. We've got a bit of a curve to this hem here as well on the strata. So you can use a hem facing in that instance to sew the hem without having the struggle of trying to ease that fabric back in. And if you wanted to do like a deep hem as well, you could get the effect of that with a hem facing, which you wouldn't be able to do if you were just trying to do a normal turn and fold hem. So that's one option. If you've sewn something like a pair of trousers, these are our Billy trousers from one of our kits this year. Say you've sewn a pair of trousers and they've turned out a little bit shorter than you want, and you haven't really got enough fabric left to be able to sew that normal hem that you would do, then you could use a facing instead. So you can sew on your hem facing with as little as like 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. So you really preserve as much of the length on the trouser as you need. If you're thinking, oh gosh, I really don't want to do that big turn up of like 2 inches or whatever it is that the pattern asks you to do on the bottom, you could put a facing on the bottom and that would help you keep some of that length. So a little idea there. I have used that in the past when I've shortened a bit too much. So if you are sewing something that's very drapey, this is the Ellsworth shirt in a viscose, which it was a previous kit from a few years ago, and it's a really drapey viscose, and this pattern comes with a hem facing, so you should be able to see it there on the bottom. And that really helps to add like a little bit of weight. When you've got quite a drapey fabric, it sort of helps to sort of weigh it down and kind of give a slightly different drape to it. So you could use it in instances like that. At the other end, say if you've sewn something in a thicker fabric, these little Emerson shorts, which are lovely for summer, are made in a ramie fabric, which is fairly thick. And say if you wanted to sort of like make the hem a little bit lighter, and or if it was something thicker like a denim, then you could always use a lighter fabric like a cotton lawn or something like that for your facing inside. These ones actually have just got a normal hem on, but you could put a facing on it in a lighter fabric, and then that might, if you just didn't want as much bulk in a certain area, then that's an option for you. You can also use the facing to add more body instead. So this is an Ashton top, which also comes with a hem facing like as part of the pattern. And you could, this one's sewn in a really drapey viscose, and we've used the drapey viscose in the facing there. But say if you wanted to it to sort of stick out a bit more at the bottom, you wanted to add a bit more body, then you could use something slightly heavier weight, which will kind of help to give that structure to the bottom there, rather than this, this soft drape that we've got from the viscose fabric. So you can kind of use it to play around with the original fabric texture and hand and everything by adding something like that in. And also lastly, well, two things here. I guess if you say if you're trying to make something out of not a lot of fabric, so again, got another little Ashton here, which was made out of a tiny little bolt end. And if you were really shy on fabric and you wanted to, again, preserve length, you could add your facing in a different contrast fabric. So you could have all these facings inside in a contrast, and you could have a little fun contrast in there. Just adds a nice touch to the inside of your garment. And if you've used it on trousers, so you've used, you know, a colourful hem facing that's different to the actual outer, you could match that to your pocket lining and your waistband lining and little details like that. Just something nice that you see when you put on your garment, those kind of touches that you can add when you're making your own clothes. So yeah, that's another kind of fun little thing that you can do with it. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to use the strata top, the sole braided one from our kit, to show you how to do this hem facing. So this is the one we sewed up in the example, and you can see there we've got that lovely hem facing at the bottom there. This is actually in a cotton gauze, so it just adds again a nice little bit of structure and just a bit of extra visual interest as well at the hem. So just follow along for what to do if you want to add one. So some patterns come with a facing piece already included, but if it doesn't, then this is how you're going to draft one for your garment. So you can decide how deep you want your finished hem facing to be. So in my example here, I've made the hem facing 2 inches, 2 inches when it's finished, or 5 centimeters, to give you quite a nice deep hem, but you can make it bigger or smaller if you want. And then you're going to add a seam allowance at the top and the bottom to this. So the strata top has a 1/2 inch hem allowance anyway, so I'm just going to use this at the bottom and then for consistency at the top as well. So altogether this means my hem facing needs to be 3 inches or 7.5 centimeters roughly. So then you're going to draft the piece by taking your pattern piece and drawing around the bottom and the side edges. So I've just drawn around it, but you could trace it if that's if that's what you prefer. And then you're going to measure up from that bottom edge by 3 inches or whatever your chosen distance is. So all the way along. And when you measure, keep your ruler perpendicular at each point along the bottom edge, especially if you've got quite a curved hem. And this includes all your seam allowances already. You don't need to add anything to this. So they're going to join up these marks. You could do that freehand or with a French curve. And then you're going to label your piece and add any other markings. So you've got the grain line or the fold line, and just make it clear which which pattern piece it is that is. And then repeat this for the rest of your pattern pieces. For my top, I've got a hem facing for the front and the back pattern pieces. And you can see they're just exactly the same as that bottom edge, just mirroring that here. So that's what they should look like. So when it comes to sewing your hem facing onto your garment, the first thing you need to do is press the top edge of the facings over to the wrong side by your chosen amount. So 1/2 inch for me. And then you're going to do this on any facing pieces you've got, and then open this pressing back out and sew the short seams of your facing together. So then you'll press these open after you've sewn them, and then you'll repress the top edge afterwards. Now pin the bottom raw edge of your facing onto your garment, right sides together. So it can be helpful here to find the centre front and the centre back of your garment and your facing so you can match them up. So I've just pressed a line in the middle of mine here so that I can easily match up the halfway point on the top and on the facing together. You're also going to match up any other points. So I've got my side seams here, which I'm just matching up. So make sure that those all neatly align. And then just going to really smooth everything out as you're pinning on to make sure everything is well aligned. So then once you've got that all pinned in place, you're going to sew on your facing with your chosen seam allowance around the bottom. So again, for me, that's 1/2 inch or 1.2 centimeters. And then once you've done that, you're going to trim your facing seam allowance in half, leaving the garment seam allowance as it is. So you can see this is the top one I can see now, and I'm just going to trim that all the way around down by half. Then take your facing and you're going to press it towards the seam allowance. So pressing it down away from the garment onto both seam allowances here. So do that all the way along, right round your garment. And then after you've done that, you're going to understitch, which is when you stitch on top of both the facing and the seam allowances below, and that helps the facing stay hidden on the inside. So once you've done that, you're going to press your facing all the way to the inside of the garment. So I've got the wrong side of the top facing up here, and I'm pressing my hem facing up to the inside of the garment. So press all the way round your top, and then you're going to pin in position. And when you're pinning it here, you really want to make sure that everything's very smooth underneath. It's not getting tucked or folded, especially if you've got quite a slippery fabric like a viscose or something like that. So just really take your time with this and make sure that it's all sitting very nice and smooth and flat before you sew it. And you're going to align any seams again and any centre back or centre front markings as well. So you're going to sew that bit all the way around quite close to the folded edge of the facing. So you want to keep an even distance here from that bottom edge. You can always use a bit of tape to mark the distance that you need to follow if your needle plate doesn't have markings wide enough. And then once you've sewn it, give it a good press and you're done. So I hope you enjoyed watching that and learning about how and when you might use hem facings. If you're going to have a go, then do comment below and let us know any other ideas on like where you might use one as well. I'm up for creative ideas for that. And if you just want any more advice on the things I've talked about in this video, then feel free to email the team as well, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Bye.